second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public comment. Just some quick on public comment. Just make sure that you state your name, address, and then the topic you will be discussing to the board, and you have 3 minutes to do your thing. Okay. First one up will be Dave Woolner.
So, here you go. Okay, my name is Dave Woolner, 494 Drive, Somerset, Wisconsin. Longtime resident, 5 kids graduated through the school system. So the question I have here is on the original holding pond. Market Johnson's a very professional contractor. They do very good quality work. They're capable of doing everything as they're directed and everything that's designed to the best of the ability. I got my faith in them. So my question is at them, it's who designed the original pond. So I was out here and watching it. As you can see, this bank on the other side of the north side here is sloping in. So standing on the edge of the water, and the high water mark has been for a year now, up over right about here. Arms reach out with a 7-foot pole, it's 40 inches deep. And the bottom of it is pure muck. It's all clay. It's a slimy, mucky clay in the sediment pond that collects out down in here. And like I said, I was watching last night, three young kids catching frogs down in forest ponds, you know, wading down through the cattails and snaring frogs, putting in the buckets. When the kids come up here and they hit the water and go in, I was gonna go in it last night. I don't mind going in deep ponds, I have a lot of fun in them, grew up in them. I grew up in Scandia. But this bank is so slippery, I mean, it's grease, you know. So I was thinking, well, if I go in here, I might not get out. Even I got a 7-foot stick in my hand. But, you know, it's greasy enough that a little kid won't get out. If a little schooler that high hit that bank, he'd be in the pond instantly. It's only 3 feet from the fence to the water's edge. So that's my question, is who designed this? And even when I brought Bisic out here and showed him this over 2 years ago, I told him the same thing. This is a dangerous situation on school property. I get it in industrial, we build ponds and they got a little bit different parameters, but as far as I understand, we should have a bench coming out here with the water level and then taper down to another bench so it would get deeper as the kid is going out. He'd be stepping down a little deeper, hopefully get scared and go back. If a kid goes in here, he has no way out. I talked to our chief, Joel, he says, I'm totally against fences. Because of one of my younger officers who's brave, hops the fence, dives in with his vest and gear on. Now we're very chance rescuing 2 people. You talk to Travis, our fire chief, same thing, says the same thing. You know, I get it, the fence is a deterrent and it's better than nothing, but I don't think it's the answer. I think the answer is that this should be terraced back somehow with retaining wall work and terrace back and get a decent level so you're not stepping 4 feet into the water and over your head. Step off that, you're over your head. Like I said, when I went along this bank here, other when I got over to the far end of it, it was all pretty much 36 to 48 to 40 inches deep, and push it down into a foot of muck, and it would go right down. So that's my question. So.
Thanks, Dave. All right. Corey Miller.
Corey Miller, Somerset, 3 kids in school. Excited that there's some good dialogue going on amongst board and admin and stuff on the topic of, in the agenda, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is a topic that I've been tracking and learning as much as I can about for the past 2+ years. Most of you are well aware of many emails and many other parents too, not just me, hear a lot of things about this topic. And I'm an engineer, I'm a very objective thinker. I don't take sides. I learn everything I can and just try to, wade through the muck of on a difficult subject like this. But every time I ask what I feel are very legitimate questions to the board or to the admin on this topic to get clarity, mostly about what it's not. Seems like the easiest way to approach it. Why can't we agree that, yeah, there's some interpretations of this highly marketed phrase, not just in education and business, in everywhere. I think it'll go down as like quintessential groupthink. Because what does it mean? I don't know. Like, you're supposed to just nod and smile when you hear it. If you don't, you get like weird vibes and you're kind of, how dare you, question, this is a good thing. It sounds so good. How can it be anything bad? And I've presented so many cases, so many articles, so many instances where it's interpreted in a very bad way in schools and in workplaces. And it seems like an extremely rational, legit question to get a very direct response from our school to commit to what it's not, now and to forever. We shouldn't have to keep revisiting this. I totally understand that through COVID and ESSER 3 funding and the social emotional learning aspects that are valid in many ways. Follow the money. Talked to Mark Biesick about this a lot too back then. I think that there needs to be just a lot more transparency on the topic about what is it, what can we agree it's not or shouldn't be, and should the phrase just be completely remarketed or something? Because to me, it has to be. So I don't think I could launch into specifics, but I think you all know what I mean. If you've forgotten my emails, Google them. If you want me to resend them, I happily will. And I look forward to hearing, some substantial conversation on this to answer not just my many parents' questions. And if you think I'm the only one, then I'm happy to do a survey and show you that there's a lot of parents that don't like this in our schools. So, thank you.
Thanks, Corey. All right, Mark Johnson update.
All right, good evening, board members. Here this evening to give another update with the referendum process. I'm threefold, three items to talk about. One big item, bid pack 4, Performing Arts Center. Give you guys an update on where we're at with that, next steps. And then real quick, just touching on the retaining pond. Just want to touch on, up to this point, the design process, the permitting process, and then some of the back checks, if you will, on that. So starting with the performing arts, like we talked last time we were here 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, bid pack 4 came over budget. Over the last 2 weeks, we've been looking at VE options or effective cost options, essentially trying to make up 15% here. It's important to note with these redesign, it does not impact the functionality of the Performing Arts Center itself. That is going to be maintained 100%. With that, on bid day, through the 23 different work categories, we had decent coverage. Some work categories were not great, so with the rebid, we're going to split that out into multiple work categories, try to solicit more bidders. With that, the schedule for the complete rebid, we're going to bid out the PAC in its entirety. Plan is on the 24th, the week of the 24th of June, so just 3 weeks away, we're going to put the new design set out on the street for bidders. We're going to bid it out on July 16th, give the bidders 3.5 weeks to look at it. The plan is to come back here on July 22nd, where we'll sit down, go through the bid results, final recommendation, ultimately getting to the final GMP, ready to start construction. Schedule implications. Again, this pushes us about a month from construction start. It was going to be here mid-June. Right now it's going to be end of July. With that, still very confident substantial completion will be prior to, will be mid-August. So we'll have this thing open for fall of 2025. With that, I just want to make one point. We can discuss this further here in July, but as part of the value engineering or cost options we're investigating, playgrounds for the elementary school. I think there was some recommendations to potentially set up a volunteer day. I think it's a good opportunity to save a lot of money, essentially what it could potentially entail. We'll deliver the wood chips to the elementary school playground locations. We'd look for volunteers, community members, to volunteer their time to place the wood chips around the play areas. There's a really good savings there. So again, we don't have to pick a date today, but if that is of interest, I think we get that scheduled here mid-July, start marketing that. With that, before I go to just a quick touch on the retaining pond, any questions on the next steps here over the next month and a half for the performing arts?
No, thanks for all the work on it, on updating and getting it back out quick so we can get it approval, and we'll talk tonight about the board meeting dates and verify those in the 22nd of July, hopefully.
And we appreciate your patience with that. And Bruce has been a part of a lot of meetings for the cost options, so thanks for your time. In regards to the pond itself, just wanted to give a little bit of background. So the pond was initially built as part of the previous referendum. And so in that design, there was an 8-foot aquatic shelf, which is sort of that flat tiered spot that was discussed earlier. And that was heavily reviewed with the DNR and met the approval process, was reviewed, approved, everything, et cetera. And then when we expanded the district office parking lot, we had to expand the pond a little bit too, and that shelf was also designed then to be extended further as part of that process. It appears now that as we've gone into the third expansion of it and it's been dewatered more, we can see that on the north and northwest side, I think that that slope is steep, so it doesn't appear like it was built with that shelf that you can see on the other sides of the pond. So I think as of right now, we're working with Mark and Johnson to go through the final surveys and the as-built drawings that we got at the completion of those projects, and we're going to sort of do an analysis of the real world versus how that shelf was designed originally. So I don't have that, I guess, comparison or analysis completed yet, but that's the background we've done so far. Shouldn't take too long to, yeah. But obviously, safety is number one. So like, we're gonna do whatever is needed to make sure that we get that resolved and the shelf is in there like it was supposed to be.
So when it comes to the argument to terrace it,
Yeah.
is that something that can be done, or is that?
I think it'll depend on if there is a shelf under the water that we can't see now, it'll depend on exactly what the grades are, but yeah, we'll have to be able to come up with a way to make it work, yeah. And the DNR has certain requirements around the shelves. I forget the exact section number, but we had correspondence with them that what we designed met it all. So I think somewhere along the line, it got too steep on part of the pond.
Okay.
And then just a quick note off of that, so the pond expansion here moving forward, so BKBM, Underwold, the civil engineer is the one that did the plans. I know we did meet with Bob Gunther at one point to discuss the impact on the storm sewer, of the city storm sewer. So with that, the plans, like Robert said, went through the DNR and the state of Wisconsin, so that's our approval process. Permits are in hand. Working with the delegated inspection agency through Somerset. I believe it's TF Inspections now. And they're involved. And then just the QC, quality assurance or control, between BKBM on site weekly. And then Brian Intertech is our third-party inspector, visually watching how it's going in here, or was going in and then moving forward into the track system. That's our quality assurance measures with reports given weekly. Any other questions on the pond details?
I will say, I was sharing with Dave before, that shelf and the high water mark, those match like the design of our pond and that we have from Mark and Johnson that is in originally matches same pond design. I think theirs was actually less high water than the ones that we had on jobs that had been on. So that same shelf, the same slope, it matches.
Yeah.
Similar as long as it was built for
Right, that's the missing piece right now. It's just see if we can figure out what happened. and if it was part of the DO expansion or the original one, so just some details to follow through.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand. So what you're saying is that it was originally built to meet those specifications, and now
It
it's
was
kind of washed away?
It was designed to meet those requirements, so there was a, I guess a regular slope, and then there's an 8-foot shelf, essentially a flat spot, and then it would go down from there. And so that was in the original project, and then also in the project where that pond got slightly enlarged as a part of the DO parking lot. And so what we're seeing out there now, it looks like those slopes are too steep, and that the shelf wasn't put in
So now-
as it was designed.
So it's looking, so are you telling me that the shelf was never put in?
We don't know for sure. It doesn't,
We need to confirm that, right?
Yeah.
Come on, Kevin. Presumably it was put there.
Yeah, I think the next steps between Walden Market and Johnson, obviously documentation, like I said, that we'll produce with this project happened back in 2020. So reviewing the punch lists and then the survey or the inspection reports from BKBM and I believe Brown Intertech at that point.
Yep.
Just to clarify all the results. Once we have that metric, then move forward to see what the next steps are.
So were you planning on coming to our next meeting? Or can you send some information about what you find out?
Yeah, I mean, this is at the top of the list, so yeah, we weren't gonna wait for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. And the
So-
as-built drawings that we do have do show a shelf. So again, that would lead us to presume it was built correctly, and something has happened since then, because we have as-built drawings that show a flat area where it should be, roughly where it should be. So we just need to do some more due diligence to see if we can figure out how we got to exactly where it is on the north and the northwest side.
Do you want them to come back, or just start with some email information, or does the board have a
I'm fine
preference?
with email information. What does the rest of the board think?
I think the sooner the better, so if we're able to not wait until the next meeting and be able to get information prior to that, that would be helpful. I
Yeah.
think that's a big,
And corrections need to be made, so now is gonna be the time to do it anyway, while we're taking the water out and we got earthwork going on, so any remediation that's needed, that will be the time to do it, so.
So we'll go put together the reports from that project and be able to share them.
but maybe share out at the meeting, even if they're not here, what
Sure.
the results of that
Yep.
were, so
Yeah.
then we can kind of.
So it's public.
Mhm.
I mean, we could come back for sure too, but I think we're gonna dig into it right away, and so we can have an email update and we can talk at our next POC meeting, but
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy to come back at the next meeting too.
Maybe either way, we'll make sure it's on the agenda to address it for an update, whether it's them in person or if we have something else, but.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, board members.
Thank you.
Good evening.
I did the same actual of what the drawing is supposed to be, what the pond is supposed to be. Superintendent report, Shannon.
Yes. I don't know, we're not supposed to speak to the audience, but thank you for your emails and your dialogue. Very helpful.
It's evident to me that there's an error, and there has been since I walked music out there. And I've seen it spend money multiple times and never getting corrected.
Mhm.
Let alone their water quality. If the DNR was to see that, they would be in trouble.
Mhm.
So Forest Pond is also chocolate. And if you go down to the discharge in the Apple River, it's chocolate rolling into the river. And so the sediment is not being maintained. And not to say anything bad against them, but I do think that you need to tighten your rope with on them and make sure that they're meaning the contract, because they left that work open for 2.5 years. And that was irritating to me.
Thank you. Okay, so I have two things. So attached to the agenda, you will see a copy of the Pupil Non-Discrimination Self-Evaluation Report. So you've heard me talk about this a little bit in my strategic plan updates. So this report literally is exactly what it sounds like. DPI requires districts every 5 years to go through kind of a prescribed self-evaluation, really kind of analyzing to see what's happening in your district in regards to non-discrimination and equality of educational opportunities for all students. So they give you 8 areas that you have to go through, looking at a variety of policies, looking at, you know, it's kind of on page 2 here, right? Enrollment trends, all kinds of things, discipline, interaction and participation in sports and athletics and extracurricular activities, looking at how we award scholarships, and basically doing an analysis of ensuring that all students are represented in an equal way, and if not, what are some things that you might look at as a district to help address that. So the report that you see here attached will come back again for a second reading, so you have plenty of time for additional questions if you between now and the next meeting. This report is not something that we have to submit to DPI, but we have to have it ready on hand in the event that they would request it. What I did have to send to DPI is an assurance that we did go through and did the self-evaluation, which you can see from this report that we certainly did. We had the, I would say, good luck of having to do 2 other non-discrimination type equity reports from DPI and the federal government, so we were able to use a lot of that work to be able to complete this report. So that was, this one actually took the least amount of time than the others, which was kind of nice. We were able to double dip a little bit. So I certainly won't go through the whole entire report, but you can see it's designated by the 8 different areas. In each area, it lists out some of the data and information that was analyzed, what were kind of a summary of the findings for each of those areas, and then potentially any areas of growth or any specific areas as a district that we felt like we could kind of tackle, some action steps or some things that we want to make sure we take a closer look at. So like I said, my intent was not to necessarily go through the whole entire report, but I'm happy to answer questions. If you have more questions between now and the next 2 weeks, I'm happy to do that as well. I'll kind of push pause there for a second, see if you have any immediate questions.
I was just curious what other underrepresented groups we have besides disabilities.
Were you looking at a certain area?
Just, I think it was just at the top. Yeah, just, I mean, it was just a general statement. I guess I should have.
No, I'm trying to scan too to see where you.
Well, we can go back to that one. I had another question.
I know, but now I want to see where you, I know, because now I've looked at this thing so many times, I've lost track of
I feel like it was at the beginning.
where that was. I do too.
Under disability, maybe? Under, I had that section.
Students
In the summary?
underrepresented
Yeah.
groups
Yep.
experience disciplinary actions.
Where are you looking? Are we looking at the
Oh,
at the table of contents?
Page 8.
Oh.
Okay, analysis of findings. We've seen a nice increase in underrepresented groups over the last 3 years, specifically children with disabilities.
So that specifically is looking at students' disabilities, students of color,
Okay.
socioeconomic disadvantaged students. Those are kind of the big 3.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then I had another question on.
Should have put page numbers on the bottom. I'm going to add that, by the way, but yep.
The district has worked hard to implement other alternatives for addressing student discipline in addition to suspension or expulsion. I was wondering what those other alternatives are.
So restorative practices is probably the big one. Re-entry meetings, behavior contracts. It's I would say a wide variety. We have attendance contracts that we use with students. Does that help?
Yep.
Give you a little, okay.
Yep, thanks.
other questions that you had? No? Okay. So I will put this on the agenda again for our next meeting. It does need to be formally approved by the board with action, but if questions come up between now and then, certainly shoot me an email and can go from there. The other thing I had was just a really quick end of year wrap up. The theme around here seems to be, I can't believe the year went so fast, and here we are. Want to specifically comment on a couple things. So our packing that we did last Friday as an entire staff was unbelievable. Staff was amazing. We never ever would have been able to get the elementary packed up without those additional hands. People were showing up at the door at 7:15, ready to pack and tape and move all kinds of things. It was amazing. People were great sports because there was a lot of heavy work to do. Elementary teachers have a lot of stuff. You could probably speak to that. So it was great. Very thankful for that added day because I truly don't know, short of elementary staff coming in this whole past weekend, how that would have been able to get done. So that was great. Yesterday, celebrated all of our staff with their different years of service, which was great. Had a breakfast in the morning. I gave kind of a state of the district address. Celebrated our retirees, so Julie Martell, Tracy Thurber, Diane Slimmick, Carol Zinter, and Trish Sheridan. So that was kind of a nice way to wrap up the year. Want to shout out our girls soccer team. I'm probably going to take some of your celebrations for once we're on the table, sorry, but earned a regional championship over the weekend, which was awesome, and a very close 1-0 win, which was great. Boys track coming home as state runner-up, which was truly amazing. So that was some really great performances by them. You heard a little bit of some referendum updates. I will keep those going for the board in particular throughout the summer. I'll be posting on Facebook pictures of various projects as they get moving. As you kind of heard, Performing Arts Center is going to be pushed back a little bit. Stadium keeps moving. The elementary today was already completely chaotic in a good way with Market Johnson and all the things happening. I saw countertops already in dumpsters, so all kinds of things happening there. And summer school starts next week. This morning we had over 80 kids in the weight room at 6:30, a mix of boys and girls. Nobody has to be here yet this week. Technically that doesn't start till next week. So lots of great things happening. So great school year. Take a little bit of a breather here and get ready for 24-25. So that was all I have tonight.
Any questions for Shannon? Okay. Next one, future board meetings. Everyone should have that in front of them. Go through and look at the dates we have for next year. If anybody has any questions about any of these dates.
I just saw that the regular session for September, I'm guessing should be the 23rd, not the 13th. I don't think we usually meet on Friday nights.
Come on.
Right after the last meeting, because then it'll be done.
How many times did we look at this sheet?
Enough
time, Amazing.
so
Oh,
probably
I
should
missed
do
it.
that,
Yep.
you know.
Thank you.
Otherwise, I thought they all looked good as far as holidays.
The only one I was looking at was the January one. Because I'm guessing it's because we don't have school on the 20th.
Yeah, it's because of that federal holiday. We used to meet on that federal holiday, and then we had board members who requested that we not.
That's exactly why we moved it. We can move it back if that's the will of the board, but that was where we started.
So there's always things that we're trying to get approved by the end of that month, January, with contracts and other things we have to approve.
Could be 20th is a workshop day, or it's a PD day, but not a student contact day.
Right, because it's a federal holiday.
I would be fine putting it to the 20th. I would be comfortable with that if other people wanted to.
Yeah, that's the only reason, just because it pushes up on the last week if we have to go through any contracts or anything.
Because that is that kind of, it's always by the end of January.
Yeah,
Yep, we can do whatever.
that's the only one. again, you can look if you're traveling or gone, or we want to look at other dates, you know, before the next year, you can bring it up for then again. Back for approval at the end of the month.
So do you want us to bring it back? We put it as, you could take action either way. We can certainly bring it back.
This is, it's all right, let's just bring it
Okay.
back if that doesn't harm anything. Just to double check.
And fix the January.
Yeah, we can throw that to the 20th and then.
Yeah.
Okay. Policy update, maybe the next one. So we have the 23 policies. We met the last 2 times. We have the documents linked. Is there any comments, or does anybody want to make a motion to approve any of these policies?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I did more of a deep dive into comprehensive health education. And I was just looking at 2413 across the state, and I'm just so curious why some districts I found have this 2413 since like 2012, and I'm really curious why we're just seeing it now here. That's my first kind of question about that. And then I was reading State Statute 115.35, Health Problems Education Program. And it says it's the Critical Health Problems Education Program, which is established in the department. The program shall be a systemic and integrated program designed to provide appropriate learning experiences based on scientific knowledge of the human organism as it functions within its environment, and designed to favorably influence the health understanding, attitudes, and practices of the individual child, which will enable him or her to adapt to changing health problems of our society. Changing health problems of our society. The program shall be designed to educate youth with regard to critical health problems, and shall include, but not be limited to, the following topics as the basis for comprehensive education curricula in all elementary and secondary schools. Controlled substances as defined in 96.014, controlled substance analogs as defined in 961.01, for alcohol, tobacco, mental health, sexually transmitted diseases, including acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, human growth and development, and related health and safety topics. Participation in the human growth and development topic of the curricula shall be entirely voluntary. The department may not require a school board to use a specific human growth and development curriculum. So there were some key words in there that I just gave me pause. And my analysis from that reading was health education can be polarizing, and I heard one of our own staff members say that this last week. Health education is a big and broad subject. Wisconsin Statute 11.35, which I read, speaks of the systemic integrated program related to changing health problems in our society, and that language is vague to me because I don't know what these health problems specifically are. It mentions a couple, but then it also says not limited to. If we are seeking transparency, why would we have parents take the second step of going to policy 9130, which is what Neola says parents can do, while this parental notification and the chance to see curriculum is stricken on what may be portions of polarizing health topics? Maybe they're not. I don't know. The policy directly states, the board recognizes that this program, like others the district offers, may contain content and/or activities that some parents find objectionable. Bottom line, the way this policy is written is not clear that this sentence only relates to human growth and development. Should be. So I'm still asking that the original parental notification and ability to see the curriculum stays in the policy and have it read the same way that is there. The district shall notify the parents in advance of the instruction and about the content of the instruction, and give the parents an opportunity to review the materials to be used. So in addition to that, I'm also asking the board to consider adding to that sentence, and all resources deemed appropriate by the district administrator. I want to see all outside presenters on any topics. I want to see all resources the DPI suggests on these topics. Because the policy written now is the district administrator may use whatever district and outside resources, including Wisconsin DPI guidelines and consultants deemed appropriate, and I as a parent want to know what they are. I'm concerned with some of the sources listed on the DPI website for families and students. I went through them all, and I want to know if there's handouts from the Trevor Project. I want to know if there's any Amaze videos used. I want to know if Planned Parenthood is here. That's all I have.
Well, that makes common sense. I mean, it really is showing transparency. It makes sense. Why would we not want to let parents be aware of what's going on and being able to opt out? They should be able to see everything. That line should be in and not straight.
Shannon, can a parent reach out to a staff member at any time and ask what they're teaching in the health class, what the curriculum is?
In any class. And I think we talked last meeting about the intention of the course syllabi to be sent out to all parents for every class.
Right.
So it's not just health, you know, parents have the right to see the curriculum in every class and the units of study. And, you know, that's been the case in all of my years of teaching here.
Well, then it makes sense to leave the sentence in.
Exactly.
It's not necessary because it's available for all courses, not just health education.
That's right.
And that's why the Neola rep said that this additional statement is redundant and less inclusive compared to what is already included in your policy 9130. You know, so I think parents should have the right for this information for all of our classes, not just health, and that is what we are doing.
But the difference is, what, Danny, we're talking about parents being notified.
They're notified at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
They're notified right before the class.
Specifically, though.
Not just,
Anything.
not just human growth and development. Because the statute is vague, and I don't know what other problems are being taught, I would like to know.
Well, that's what I'm talking about with the course syllabi, that every parent is given that information at the, you know, at the middle school, it would have been at the beginning of the year, but at the high school, it would probably be each semester, is that correct?
But is it specific to what's being taught at a certain period of time, or is it just a general description of what is being taught in the curriculum?
You know, it's the units.
It's the units,
Right.
but what's specific? So if there's something controversial, the parents should know what's going to be presented in the class.
You know, I don't have a health curriculum, a health class syllabus in front of me, so I cannot tell you exactly what the teacher has written there. But from what I have seen in the materials that were attached for the Human Growth and Development meeting that we had just a week or two ago, it was very clear and specific.
So what's the problem with keeping that sentence in there? Just because Neola said we shouldn't have it, or is there a better reason? Or a different reason?
Well, maybe the district administrator shall notify parents of planned instruction in the health education curriculum regarding human growth and development topics as identified and in accordance with policy 2414, human growth and development, and that has that same verbiage.
Yeah, it's really the same.
And that's why he's saying, that's why it was moved. And that's why he's saying that it's redundant if you keep it in that second paragraph, is because it is still there.
It's already stated.
The district administrator shall notify parents of planned instruction in the health education curriculum regarding human growth and development topics as identified in accordance with policy 2414.
Yeah, but that's just human growth and
Right.
development.
It's separate.
It's separate.
Right, this policy specifically deals with a parent's objection and how it's addressed by the administrator if they have alternative
Mhm.
assignments.
Or, yeah,
And I, like I said before, I don't really have an issue with it staying there or not being there. I'll go along with either.
I mean, I don't understand why we wouldn't keep it in there as stated.
There's districts out there that have the same language, so have the parental notification and ability to see
that's
it.
because it was in there.
Yeah, I know, so why take it out? I mean, why is Neola saying to take it out?
Because it's already in there, it's said twice.
It's a different 24-14, this is 24-13, right?
Yeah,
We're on 24.
Two different things.
so, yeah, I'm on 24-13, not 24-14.
Yeah,
Right. So you're saying, Ian, that Danny, you're saying the in red in the second paragraph, correct?
Mhm.
You want that to stay?
I do, yep.
And you were saying, Ian, that same wording is, let's see, underneath, end of options, in highlighted in green, that will stay, the district administrator shall notify.
I guess
I don't really, I mean,
everybody. I
either
mean,
way, I think it's stating the same thing, so
I don't see it as saying the same thing.
what's different about it?
Well, I think it casts a broader net in the sentence that Neola wants to take out. It's more specific.
So if we're sharing the syllabus
And
ahead of
about
time
the content of
already,
instruction.
and anybody can ask at any time for this information, I don't know why we need to have it in there.
however, if we did keep it, are the steps that we are taking currently satisfactory, or are you asking for more than what is being done already?
That's another question. I mean, it would be nice to see, like, on the individual school pages, the lessons for the topics that would be upcoming in health education.
We're just talking about
So you're-
maximizing transparency.
You're asking about more than?
No, well, I mean, that can be something later, but I mean, for now, I am happy with the sentence staying.
But I just want to make sure that we're all clear that if this sentence stays, what we mean by it is what we mean by it, that the syllabus.
This is a brand new policy for us, so I guess we better figure it out now.
So I'm asking, is what you mean, what we are already doing, that the course syllabi is available to all, it's sent out, and I believe that what teachers typically do is give it to the kids. Are you saying that you want every course syllabi sent out to parents?
Yeah, I mean, papers get lost, kids don't bring stuff home, it gets stashed in lockers.
So if a
Electronic is
teacher
much
gives the
easier.
syllabus to a kid and the parent doesn't get it, are you going to say then that the policy was not followed?
Well, all that right now is already linked to the Spartan Scoop and underneath grade level announcements. I mean, that's all, for instance, like this year before the health education, that permission slip was linked several times electronically. It was sent by email electronically. I mean, I think those things are already
For that particular unit? it was.
well, for the ones that, for that particular unit that says like, hey, heads up, if you don't want to participate, this is the time, parents, to give that, I want to opt my child out of this. But I think just in general, I mean, anytime, weekly on the Spartan Scoop, that stuff is available under those grade level updates.
Not everybody's gonna read the Spartan Scoop. They need to
Well, that's a parent's job. If you wanna know this information, that's, how else do you want parents to get it? If we wanna be transparent, I don't know how else you want us to
The
get it to
handout
them.
that goes home with the kids, it's very specific about.
And that
this.
does go. I mean, I get papers, and emails. I mean, I think we're right now, we're kind of going around in circles about, we have health education up and now we're going into a bigger.
We're kind of getting in the
thing.
weeds and
So-
the wording itself.
So I guess,
If we wanna keep the sentence, let's keep the sentence, but I'd like to move on with the policies and what we're supposed to be doing here.
so do we wanna make a motion on this specific agenda item as is, or do we wanna make a motion moving the language? What do we wanna do here?
I'll make a motion to approve the policies listed in agenda item 6A, I, 1 through 23, as attached.
Are there any seconds?
I will second that.
Okay. Any other discussions on either this policy being changed or any?
All right, so 2413, what does that mean? Are we approving the stricken?
We are approving it as presented, so we would be approving it
Okay.
with the red
Hey, Bruce.
line removed.
Bruce.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, I heard the motion on the table is to approve the policies as presented on the agenda, correct?
Correct.
Is-
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yes, so
So once again, that line would not be stricken on 2413.
No,
it would be as
all of
presented.
As is.
all of the policies would be approved as they are presented in the attach. That's the motion I made. I made a motion that we approve all the policies as presented in the policy document.
Can I read something quick?
Sure.
Sure, go
Put
ahead.
this at ease. So, I'm gonna start in the middle of this. Topics as identified and in accordance with policy
You
2414.
speak up a little, just make sure I can hear you.
Sure. So it references in accordance with policy 2414. 2414 reads, "The district shall provide parents annually with an outline of the human growth and development program used in their child's grade level, as well as information regarding how the parent may inspect the complete program and instructional materials prior to use in the classroom. The program shall be made available to parents for inspection. The district shall notify the parents in advance of the instruction and give them an opportunity prior to instruction to review the complete program and instructional materials and of their right to have their child excused from the instruction."
Complete program,
that's-
Yeah,
health
but-
education.
I'm talking about other subjects besides human growth and development.
No, complete program as in
You're
the
talking-
entire health class.
Right. You're talking about some other class?
Well,
I think you're counting out the mental health section, or the
Yeah,
alcohol, drug section, or
exactly.
the, whatever other section they're going through.
yep,
Social, emotional, you would
Yep.
want all of those outlines, which again, is like we're saying, is going out with everybody through the syllabus as part of 9130, correct? Lori, is that what I'm understanding? That 9130.
9130 is the, where we have our policy where parents can ask. Yeah,
For the syllabus for every class, so they can be shared.
yeah.
Okay. So that's why I'm fine with this one, as it is. So we have a motion and a second. Do you want to amend it to include this sentence? Do you want to amend it to include anything else that you?
Well, can we take a vote on
Or-
my motion first?
Yes, we can take a vote. We'll take a vote on Lori's motion. We'll do a roll call vote. Matt, you're on the speaker. I'm gonna start with you.
Yes.
Steve,
No.
Ian,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Lacey.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Danny.
no.
I have two. We'll move on with these as presented. All right. Moving on to item 7, policy review requests. The first policy is 2416, student privacy and parental access information. Danny, you requested this one, and I think you talked about some language possibly you wanted to add.
Yeah, let me scroll down here. Well, we were talking about surveys last time, right? And I think we can make a compromise on student surveys. I'd be happy with parental notice just on school climate or social emotional surveys with a link to the survey. Maybe that could be, I was looking at that policy, maybe it could be listed as letter E under parental rights, something like parents shall be notified of any survey related to school climate or social emotional learning and given time to see the survey. And that could just take place in the school.
Under consistent with parental rights, A, is that what you?
Yep.
So are you saying notify, because A says that you notify parents in writing of any surveys, analyses, or evaluations which may reveal any of the information as identified in A through H above. But I think you said you wanted to add 2 items?
I mean, we could put it there instead of making another letter.
What are you trying to add? Can you read that again? Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
You're
Just,
trying to add-
just adding in, because these are for, this is the federal language, for surveys with the A through H. So I kind of like putting it under consistent with parental rights, putting it under that area.
What is
exactly
it?
is it?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
can you read
sorry.
it again?
Oh, sure.
What you were asking to.
Something like parents shall be notified of any survey related to school climate or social emotional learning and given time to see the survey.
So you're saying H, like at I, school climate, and
J, social emotional learning.
because those would be the topics that you want?
Yeah.
You're at.
Yep. Sorry, yep.
And will you say the third part with time to review?
Parents given time to see the survey.
Well, it says that in the letter A then, so it would be A through J.
Oh, I suppose you wouldn't need that if it's
In a
just.
timely manner, and which allows interested parents to request an opportunity to
Sure,
inspect.
that part's already there.
Yeah.
So parents who are interested, it wouldn't just be sent out in general, parents
Sure.
could, okay.
Well, if we include it as I and J, we'd have to send it to every parent. Because now we're saying that
Notify
not
parents in writing of any
only
surveys.
do we need to follow the federal law, A through H, we're also including 2 more items to that list.
School climate, so what would that? I guess I'm just trying to figure out where is it? What would that cover that's not covered above? Like,
Surveys on DEI maybe? Or,
DEI specifically, what are you referencing?
I don't know, they were on the last, for example, the last 2 surveys given to kids. That would be covered by adding
What
this.
question was under that, your questioning, or that you would want to send out to parents? What question from that survey was asked that would make that fit
Nothing.
into your language?
Nothing. I mean, I don't know, it's broad. So it certainly doesn't, I can't see anything negative with parents seeing the surveys.
We just
I
want to
would-
make
Hey, Bruce?
sure.
Yeah, Matt, yeah, go ahead.
Could you just say those 2 items one more time so I can hear them clear? That, because my understanding, there's 2 items that you want added to that list A through H, correct?
Yeah, Danny, yeah, go ahead, speak loud so Matt can hear.
Yep, sorry, 2 items added, school climate and social emotional learning surveys.
You hear that, Matt?
That's what you would like to see added to that list of A through H.
Yes, please.
So I'm gonna, I feel like, I'm just gonna give an example. So as a first grade teacher, if I ask kids, did you have a good day today? Or describe, use one word to talk about your day. That to me would be social emotional.
And
So that to me would be even a survey. So really, you're then saying for teachers, because if you really wanted to follow that particular thing, then if I was a teacher of a first grade student, I would need to notify students if I asked them that question.
I think we talked about this last time.
I'm not like,
Yeah, no, I
you're
know what you're
getting into the
saying.
weeds because a survey really can be,
Yeah.
or, a survey technique, if I say, oh, raise your hand if this happened,
That's
okay,
a-
raise your hand if this happened.
That's a question, not a survey.
No, but it would be considered.
I
You're
don't
taking a
think so.
survey of students. That's what the definition of a survey is. You're taking,
I don't think so. I think that's, yeah, no.
it could be perceived that way.
Well, is there a way we can clarify that more?
Or like a formal, something that goes out, because when you ask a question and you ask for one or the other, you're,
And I think it would also, school climate for sure, would that be part of what is in educator effectiveness teacher surveys? And even social emotional, could that even be, because I remember some of those questions are, do you feel like you can talk to your teacher, or do you feel like you can ask questions, That's why I'm concerned about adding things without legal advice, because it's just so easy to get
Sure.
into
Well,
trouble.
then can we ask Neola?
can we take it to Neil to see? I get what you're saying. I'm just like, or like the educator effectiveness of it, isn't it? For my personal growth, I'll have like 4 questions I give to students at the beginning of the year, like very generic, and then at the end of the year, give them the same to say, hey, yeah, did you feel comfortable? What could the teacher do? And to me, that goes under that, but that is, how could it be worded, or what would be the advice of Neola as far as?
Well, I can tell
putting
you
that in?
already what Neola's advice will be. It will be that you leave it to follow the federal law, or the state law. That's why they rate it this way.
I think the EE survey is tricky because teachers can create those. Those are surveys that, as an evaluator, I don't even see. That's part of the process. I see the analysis, but principals, for example, don't look at those surveys ahead of time, and that's intentional based off of the model. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's how those surveys are designed.
Does anything stay on a kid's record?
No, for those surveys in particular.
Yeah.
No,
No,
those
so-
are even taken anonymously.
Yep. And
What
it's
is
really,
the
it's to
Savers for
inform,
Fastbridge?
well, let me just finish the
Sorry.
EE thing. So that's really to inform teacher practice, right? Like kind of a dipstick of how am I doing. So my Savers would fit in here absolutely in terms of, we've kind of filed it under probably B because it doesn't necessarily spell out social emotional per se, but it's a third-party vendor, those kinds of things. So that's why we've been following that for that in particular.
I think when you're prying into a child's emotions and you're putting them on the spot about their emotions, I think that's what Danny's getting at, right? The whole SEO.
It happens daily. I mean, that part of that is the work of teachers. I mean, it just, and I'm
Sure.
not disagreeing with kind of the road that you're going. I understand. I think, yes, parent knowledge ahead of time, of course, is important. But the reality is those things happen every single day. So if there is going to be language added or changed, I had a lot of staff come and speak to me after the last meeting. There would need to be an extremely large amount of clarification, because I think staff feeling like this will make my job hard when I'm trying to do some of those things of just,
Well,
again,
it's
kind
not
of the
even making my job hard, it's, they don't want to do anything wrong.
That's what,
You know,
that's
they-
what I mean.
Yeah,
Right,
they
right.
want to follow
With good
our-
intentions, wanting to do
Yes.
what they're supposed to do, right. Mhm.
And I think that the time that's associated with it, so if you say, it could be something little, but if you say notify, I mean, every time you notified, every email, I mean, there's barely time to use the bathroom during the day, half the time, let alone
Are we-
to send something then every time then with a, or, I mean, I feel like a little bit, Danny, is what you're kind of getting at is really that B, and some, I mean, really underlined in those areas. But I think by saying school climate, it's a really, really broad.
Can we bring this one back next time? Just think about it.
When's the next time with Neola?
Well, we don't have another one with Neola at this time. Usually, typically, we get an update in the summer and then an update in the winter, so like around December or January. But it depends.
So is this specifically pertaining to written surveys, or is this anything, oral questions?
It just says any surveys, analysis or evaluation.
Well, maybe it could be specifically written.
I think you're getting that building-wide surveys. We could get that specific, right?
Maybe. It wouldn't necessarily have to be, but
If I'm thinking that's a concern.
Well, right now, we do send out notification to parents because of particular surveys that are not school-wide, but they meet some of those criteria age to age.
No, you're right, though. We're talking about the whole
Building.
school building survey, in writing, written surveys.
And we had remember our staff are trying to get a pulse on our students. And they've been trained to do this. And to not, to make sure they're following these, not doing anything that would require this. And if they do, they would submit in writing to the parents. So I don't know if adding anything's needed here. And unless someone wants to look at adding something else, or maybe motion to add something, or want to leave it as is. I don't know if we bring it back again if we're all agreeing to leave it. If there's something we want to ask, and we talked about last month, bring it again. I just don't want these things, we just keep talking about the same one every meeting.
It's kind of the idea behind the policy committee. If we want to look at it, dig into it deeper.
So this could go to the policy.
Well, this one, we talked about that at our last meeting, and this policy is not being updated. And we talked about it going to the policy committee, and I said, no way, I don't want it coming to just the policy committee. This is a board decision. This has to be an entire board discussion and vote. I don't want,
Because it's not.
But we don't want every policy that people want to look up coming to the whole board. I mean, the policy committee can get together, come to some kind of consensus, whether it even needs to go to the whole board. Come forward with a recommendation, and then the board can discuss that. Otherwise, we're kind of spitballing.
I would disagree with that, Ian. I think that if a board member is gonna bring up a specific policy outside of a review time, then the board as a whole should agree that it goes to the committee, as opposed to the committee just kind of taking on all of these policies and looking at them. If one is being sent to the committee, I would like to vote and say, yes, send it, or no, leave it as is. For this one, I think we're good as is. That's my opinion. That's where I sit as well.
Any other discussion on this one? Maybe you want to make a motion to add item J, this one tonight? Or you want to leave it as is?
I'd like to make a motion. Can you give me, tell me the language again?
So I guess your motion would be to add
choice. I really don't.
Well, at least I think it should get a second reading if we're going to change it.
Well, it's the second time we talked about this one,
Those changes specifically.
but I guess no, not this change specifically.
I think you.
So if we do this, would this go to Neola for a review, or would this go to Trevor for review?
What do you think?
It would have to go to Trevor. Neola won't do it. Neola will only back their wording, anything that you add anywhere, not just this policy, but they won't review it. You'll have to take it to Trevor.
So do we, as a board, do we want to vote if we want to take?
Well, are you making a
language?
motion, Jenny?
Oh,
Well, I guess do we want to make a motion to bring it to Trevor for review, or do we, is that even something we want to talk about?
Well, I think we should.
Okay.
you can make that motion.
Okay, so from your motion would be to add
That would be my, yeah, I would like to make a motion to add I and J to policy 2416 and
stating what are they adding, what language is it?
the language would be,
I would be school climate.
yeah, I would
And
be
J
school
would
climate
be
and J would be
social
social and emotional learning.
And
And then bring that to Trevor to view,
to get an opinion.
to get an opinion.
I will second that.
Okay, we'll do a roll call, Amy, I'll start with you.
Yes.
Matt, did you hear that?
No, I would need to see this in writing, so no.
Steve?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Lori?
No.
Lacey?
No.
Myself, no. Okay, I guess I'm fine leaving this one as is. I'll present it at this time. All right, then I'm gonna move us on to the next, policy. Lori, you asked this one to be added to the agenda. Do you wanna bring up any of your thoughts on this
Yeah,
topic?
what I would like to get clarification from the rest of the board on is letter B in this policy. Anyone having a legitimate interest in the actions of the board may comment during the public portion of a meeting. In the past, it was the consensus of the board, in previous board several years ago, that anyone having a legitimate interest in the actions of the board would be someone who is a taxpayer in the district or has a student enrolled in the district. And I would like to get, clarification from this board on what letter B means.
When was that taken off, Lori, do you know? Or, so it used to read if you are a taxpayer
No.
or a parent?
I don't remember if those specific words were in there or not, but that was the consensus
Of our interpretation?
Yes.
Of legitimate
And I
interest,
also
right?
spoke
Okay.
with Neola about this, and Neola said that the only law about public comment is it's the board's decision whether you even want to have it. And then the only other thing that's mentioned in the law has to do with the part down at the bottom about recording, filming, or photographing. So B, there is no state statute interpreting that, so that is completely up to our own board, what that means.
if I can just speak up quick, I would say if somebody wants to give comment, no matter if they're a taxpayer or not, if it's relevant to a topic that the board's addressing, I'm okay listening to it. As long as it's relevant.
How do you decide if it's relevant?
Are you saying relevant? Matt, are you referring to relevant to a topic on the agenda? Or,
Yeah, I guess I would say relative to a topic on the agenda, so I think of our last meeting as a prime example. I think that was a perfect opportunity for public comment from an organization that supports the SRO program. I think that was relevant. It was important for me to hear it, and I'm okay with that. So I guess I would say relevant to a topic on the agenda. Or a taxpayer resident on any topic at all. But if they're outside, by any means, it's gotta be relative to the agenda.
I would say relative to the school as a whole, not necessarily what's on the agenda.
I just don't know how you determine who you're gonna exclude.
right, I think that's where Lori and why Lori maybe brought it up, not put it up, but if people who show up from anywhere to our meeting to talk about topics that they're from anywhere, how do you,
Well, I think it came up during some of the book issues too.
with people calling from,
And then you got a
Wherever.
plethora, I mean, you had people calling, you had people like authors emailing, you had some of
Right.
that where how to define that legitimate interest, because, but then, I mean, is there any way even, I mean, when we think of it as, what is our time for 20 minutes? Even, I don't even think there's any way we could write it, but putting them in order of somehow, because then it's like, okay, if we get to those meetings, I'm kind of talking off the cuff here, but if you have a meeting with 10 public comments and 7 of them are taxpayers or residents, I think they should take priority over something that's not.
I think when you try to put a barrier on public comment, it's a slippery slope.
I guess, yeah, it's just, I think for this one, it's how this board feels about that specific statement there, that the having legitimate interest is, I think, what you're going for, Lori.
That's what I'm
If we're-
asking for clarification on.
If we're okay with being a topic on the agenda, if they're speaking to any school topic here, and I guess it's too for us to take, if someone does come in from a different perspective and they're speaking about a school topic, it's, also up to us to interpret how we want to listen to that. And if they're saying they're from, Texas and they've gone through this in their community, we would maybe have to.
I think it's important that we make our interpretation clear so that we have guidelines to follow, so that we're not put in a situation at every meeting trying to make a decision. And we often don't have the time.
Maybe we should just leave everything the way it is right now.
Which is what? I thought it meant taxpayers in the district. That's what I thought it meant. And people who may not be taxpayers but have open enrolled their children here. So taxpayers or people who have students enrolled. That's what I thought it meant.
So where's this been a problem lately? Can you think of something? I mean, you brought it up, so it must be a problem.
Well, I can think of 2 situations where we had public comment from people who did not fit either of those criteria, which is why I'm asking the question.
Well, I'm just
What's
asking.
this board's interpretation of what a legitimate interest is? Whatever the board decides as a whole, great. But, I think it's important that we clarify this and have an understanding, so we're not trying to figure it out at every meeting. And so now that we've had an opportunity to discuss it, and I've been able to ask the question, perhaps what should happen is that we bring this back to the next meeting so we have time to think about it and form an opinion. And then we can talk about it again and make some kind of agreement on the interpretation of it.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah,
I agree.
I'm okay with that.
As long as it is relevant to the agenda.
Yeah, I like that one too. If you're coming in, I mean, I think we can get into even that slippery slope of, what makes this person relevant to speak to an agenda item who's not from here, and that can also, we don't always have president of a association coming to speak to us either about things. So what?
Well, I know Lori's also referring to, about last June, actually, I just looked back in my emails, and there was, one that called in from, a different area of the state, Appleton. And when they did request public comment, I sent to them the public comment at board meetings and our policy, and then in red, I did put anyone having a legitimate interest in the actions of the board may comment during the public portion. And, the back from that speaker was, he did have, his defense was he did have legitimate interest. You can take that in many ways, because even though he wasn't a taxpayer or a parent, he was interested and had legitimate interest. So I get how that can, how are we interpreting that?
Well, so let's bring this one back, and everyone kind of, we can come up with our thoughts, and if we want to just make sure we all have an understanding next time of what we want to, how we want to interpret that line, and maybe anything else on the public comment policy. Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. Moving on, funding options for the school resource officer. I think, Shannon, you have an update for us on
I
this
can
one?
start. So Dave and I from the last meeting were able to connect with DPI, had a great discussion with him. It wasn't necessarily just about the SRO, but we talked about some different Fund 80 things, just trying to get some better idea of how are other schools using that fund, what are some other ways schools are using it. But as specific to the resource officer, he said that would fit the criteria that you could funnel the entire cost for an SRO through Fund 80. Even though we've got a small portion right now that's in Fund 10, we could transfer that and whatever the rest of the cost would be to have someone full-time into Fund 80, if that's something the board decided to do in the fall. Kind of the caveat, he said, is, again, not just SRO, but anything that you're shoveling through Fund 80 needs to have, a community impact outside of just the campus. So some things we talked about with the SRO, for example, would be doing some partnering with St. Anne's. It's a private school right in our community. So, doing some collaboration there and kind of sharing, for lack of a better word, the SRO on whether it's some programming or some things like that. It wouldn't necessarily need to be, nor should it be, the SRO spends one day a week at St. Anne's, but really kind of thinking more of that programming piece, doing some of that collaboration. So as long as we are able to document that community impact outside of just our campus, if the board decided to go through with that at our annual meeting, that's something that we could put through Fund 80. One thing that we would suggest, we meaning Dave and I, after talking to him, would be at an upcoming meeting, officially getting some action on the agenda where we have an actual action item where we essentially close out our current contract and then have some language on the agenda that indicates our intention of funding the SRO through Fund 80. That way we have it kind of in writing and a little bit more formal. I have not talked to Chief Trepchak about this at this point. Wanted to obviously just kind of mention it here. That's pouring. So I can do some next steps for sure, but good news, I think some questions Dave and I had were just kind of how much could we actually put through Fund 80? Would it have to be just that kind of remaining gap amount, but it could be all of it, which is great. If you have other ideas, certainly can talk about that too, but
So it can be the entire.
It can be the entire thing. The only thing he said is if you stopped levying for that specific piece, or frankly anything under Fund 80, it would have to go away for a year. You can't just kind of year to year decide we're gonna levy this year, not this year, go Fund 10, Fund 80, back and forth. There's some rules and regulations around that. But kind of the latest update. So
We couldn't make, that would have to be an item on the annual meeting in September?
it would,
Okay.
yep.
We could still vote to make that a commitment outside of the Fund 80 prior to that, and just make it a priority that we're gonna have a full-time SRO. And then, you know, if we decide after reviewing the budget that that's the only alternative is the Fund 80, then so be it. But it'd be nice to have that commitment for a full-time SRO sooner than later, so they can do some planning.
So Shannon, it sounded like you and Dave were saying something about, I thought you were saying something about an upcoming agenda before the end.
We would, so we would suggest, and whether it's the next meeting or if you prefer it to be the next work session, having, and I haven't worked it all out yet, but having some language on here where the board would actually take action on basically the intent of funneling the SRO through Fund 80, which would be my suggestion, since we are able to do it, and have kind of tied into that, essentially that we would be stopping the Fund 10 contract and have in writing as an agenda item voted on by the board that the intent would be then to funnel it through Fund 80. Like I said, I have not talked to Chief Trepchuk, I have no idea if he watches these meetings, but that would be my next step is out of this meeting then, depending on the direction of the board, if that's something, obviously we're not taking any action tonight, but I wanted to at least get a pulse of, sounds great, or we want more options, or.
Could we have a dollar amount associated with that?
So we've been going off of 50,000, but we could dial it in. We'll need to, obviously, when we decide on a levy amount for that particular item. Every year, it may vary just a bit depending on the officer. Some officers are a little more expensive than others based off of longevity and benefits and those kinds of things. So it sounded like, even when Chief was here last time, that he had a good idea of potentially who that might be. So we'd be working with him to dial that in of exactly what that dollar amount would be.
I think it's good to make a long-term commitment to the program now. You know, however we word that and vote on that.
So, yeah, I'd like that to come back to the work session in July, that with the formal language, and that gives you time to talk to Chief
Yep.
Trepchuk.
Yep.
And finalize the dollar amounts even. And we can make that formal motion to move it from Fund 10 to Fund 80.
Yeah.
Can we do that before the annual meeting?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can do it in July.
Mhm. I'm sorry, what did you say?
No, is that a good enough direction?
Yeah, that's great.
Are there any other avenues for the funding? Because I know we said to make up the difference was about 35,000, right?
Roughly.
Okay. So are there any other places in the budget that you think right now that we can find that money?
I wouldn't be able to tell you that right now. I would say the fact that we can put everything through Fund 80, that would be my suggestion. So in a month or two, probably give you a tighter recap of what that looks like, but anything that we can put through Fund 80, my suggestion will be to put through Fund 80. So freeze up dollars in the general fund.
So my only concern about Fund 80 is, besides the SRO, what are we looking at? Are we talking about putting additional?
Potentially middle school athletics, potentially looking at an on-site childcare. That will be for you guys to discuss and decide. You could decide to do all of it, you could decide to do 1, 2, 3, none of it. But you'll get information about specifically the child care center in July to be able to make that decision by September, so.
And I don't remember which meeting it is, I get mixed up on how long ago things happened, but we specifically gave Dave direction to look for anything possible that could go into Fund 80.
Right, and right now I would say.
I think Danny and Steve, you were on the board when we did that, right?
I think it was our very first meeting.
Yeah, and I would say the middle school athletics and the SRO would be what I would consider kind of existing dollars that we could move. The on-site childcare, there's some other components of that that I think are obviously positive to the district, but that's not something we're actively paying for right now. That would be a new additional add-on through Fund 80, but more information to come on that.
Any other thoughts?
And we'll be able to, I'm sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
we'll be able to analyze the different costs to the taxpayer based on the different options, 1, 2, and 3.
Yep. Yep, you'll have all the information of what that looks like from option 1 to all of it, none of it. Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions, Steve, or any other comments?
No, I mean, I think that there's been enough discussion now where, to me, it feels like there's some positive momentum for the security.
Ian, any other comments on that one? Or Danny? Matt, any other comments on that topic?
No, I don't have that one.
Okay. Either, thank you for looking into that and for
Yep.
having Dave to look into that. Appreciate it. It was a way to try to get that funded. So, thank you. Board development. So, this item. So I've reached out to a few, I think other people have reached out to a few other people for options to do some board development for us. I think, tonight we just want to run through maybe what people have looked into, what people's thoughts are. I've reached out to WASB for them to do, so I guess I'll start with it, is I've reached out to WASB about them either bringing somebody here. They said they would do that. They also have some online resources that we could, as a board, access. I think there is a cost associated with that we could look into. And we would have to do our own, either watching the videos or going into their library of presentations that they have for us that we could either review as a session together. If we pick a topic and wanted to review, or look at them outside and then discuss them in kind of like a book study type thing. One of the things that I liked out of WASB was they give a survey. They give us an option to take a survey. It's free to the board for us to take this at least, and then we can pay school perceptions that Rob Demuse, I think is the senior guy, that we've used before from school perceptions, about, I think it's $250, and he will put all of that information together and give us kind of like an output of how we compare to other districts and how we rate just internally, and then they'll review that, and WASB would also give a review of that data to us, just as a place to start, for us as a board to just find out where as a board so we can kind of hone in on the topics that we as a board want to develop that are further apart possibly. And again, for that $250, I will front that and pay for that, so we don't have to, and we can just pay for it. I will cover it to do that survey. I think it's that valuable to do it for the whole board to take that survey. It's just at least a starting point no matter what, and then we can move forward with whoever we want. So out of this meeting tonight, we can vote on it or whatever, but I can send out a link for us to take that. That would be, I think, just something to start with, and I'm open to what other people think for that. That'd be a good place to start at least. We can take it by a certain time and then, have them put it together and they can come back and present it to us. I'm guessing in July, you can give me a time frame and how quick we'd have to do that. But that's, I guess, where I started on that topic. I know some other people looked into things, but my goal would be just to take that survey at least, to make a recommendation tonight to take that survey for everybody. If you have any thoughts on that, and we can go and do other options.
Bruce, I agree, but I will oppose you paying for that. I don't think any board member should take that on. I think it's valuable for all of us. So I don't agree with you paying for it, but I do think it's valuable that we do that.
And again, I mean, it's a small fee, so whatever, however we want to do it, but,
It doesn't matter, it sets precedent, I don't think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I would hope we all agree with that. It's something we should do to get a good baseline of where we're at, and then we can decide on how we move forward.
okay. Any other thoughts on that, just taking the survey, is everyone open to that?
Yeah.
Okay, so then, just the nods, I think everyone's eyeing, so I'll send that out to everybody, just, and then
Would you
we'll,
like a formal motion so we have it on the record? I will make a motion that our board, each board member, completes the
WASB,
WASB survey.
yeah.
I'll
I
second.
don't know what it's called, I guess it should pull it up.
I would just like,
It's a
just
board
clarification
development tool.
on how it's funded though.
Yeah, and then we'll have the analysis through.
And does, so when you fill it out, do the
Annual development survey.
annual development survey?
Yep.
So do those results go right back to WASB and then WASB sends them to Rob? Or how does that work?
He said to reach out to Rob Demuse from School Perceptions if this is the board, if they desire to use this. So I can just email him when I send it out to everybody.
All right.
This will be happening.
So I'll make my motion that each board member completes the board development tool. Is that what it was called?
Yep, annual board development survey.
To complete the annual board development survey, and that those results be sent to Rob at School Perceptions for analysis, and he will provide a report, and that will be paid for out of the board budget.
Second to that motion. Steve, you second that?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, all right, we'll move forward with that. So that was great. Thanks, everybody. I think that's a good place to start.
And then, in the past, we have had board development through WASB. The person who came and worked with us, her name was Cheryl Gullicksrud. And at my CISA meeting last night, I know that Cheryl is still working with WASB. She was involved in our CISA 11, hiring our new administrator. We just got a new administrator last year. And she was also involved in the hiring, running the process for the school district of Ellsworth. They just hired a new superintendent. So I know that Cheryl Gullicksrud is still working with WASB.
Any other thoughts? Any other people? I know, Danny, you
Yeah,
had a few.
mostly, talked to Stephanie Anderson, who's an executive business coach. She lives here in Somerset. She's facilitated hundreds of sessions with team building skills for businesses, nonprofits, universities. I think she'd be great. She recommends 3 2-hour sessions. The first would be focused on strengths, the second on identifying key goal areas, and the third would be goal refinement. And then all we would need to cover is the cost of taking the strengths assessment per person, which of course she doesn't profit from. And that could be taken on the Gallup website or arranged through Stephanie, which gives her easier access to the results. I think she's mentioned she talked to you a little bit too. So that's who I found.
Anybody else have any?
I'd like to keep Dr. Pritzel on our radar as well. I know that we did some really good work with him prior, and we had a good experience prior, so.
I think the cost is a consideration. If our budget is tight, we should really look at minimizing any cost associated with this.
And I agree with cost, I also agree with, there's a big benefit to having a trained person in that board, also it's board development, you know, I've talked to some other people. But I like to be as well. I am open to whatever we all can agree on here.
Stephanie said she would do it for free.
Anybody else have any other thoughts?
Are we talking at this meeting, are we deciding what route we're going, or are we doing that after the skills assessment?
I don't think we have to wait till then. I think just getting out maybe the few that we want to look into and think about, and I'll reach out to any of these people in the meantime or have other thoughts. I was just trying to get anything out there. I've also talked to Catherine Cranston, who is working in all of our schools, about her coming in and helping facilitate training. And I think you sent the email on it. So I reached out to her, and she said she would also come in to do some sessions with us, either every month, every other month, just to help, again, facilitate, do what we're doing at our schools, and that would kind of mimic what we're doing in our schools already, kind of as a board, which to me kind of shows more even support of the restorative practices in our schools. With her who was on the board, she's worked with school districts. So I mean, I think that's an option too, if not picking anybody or anybody.
Anything to do with restorative practices isn't my cup of tea.
Okay. No. That's fine. I mean, again, this is open to everybody and all thoughts. I mean, but that was, just something I think we should all, again, we have Lee, we have Wasby, Catherine, Stephanie. I mean, I don't know if anybody else reached out to anybody or any other thoughts or any more information they want. I can send some stuff from Wasby, just what these development things are, what they look like. He gave me just a quick, even just a presentation of more of our superintendent things, that this is some of the stuff, and he's like, here's a sample. And I may just send it out when I send the link attached to it,
Great.
just to happen. Again, I guess, yeah.
Bring up the pizzas, right? That would work.
Or we bring, Steve, your topic of bring pizzas in here and we hash it out together, right? As a team. And if that's what the board decides to do, that's what the board decides to do. So, I'm not gonna make the decision on what we do. I asked everyone to kind of look into thoughts. I think for our next meeting though, we talked about it last time just to kind of get it rolling. I asked people to look into it. We have, I think, again, I don't know if you had any other, but these are all good enough options. Or Matt, if you had any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would just say if there's consultants that we want to look at, I would like them to come in and give a presentation. I'd like to hear, a little bit about them and what they have to offer in person before I decide. I can't just make a decision based on a name and someone's recommendation. If we're picking between a few, I'd like them to come in and address the board as a whole, and then we decide.
Would you be good with like a resume type thing, or do you want an actual presentation, or
I prefer it in person. So I think the best first step is that survey that you talked about. We do that, so we have that baseline, and then we invite, whether it's 2 or 3, whether it's Dr. Kritzel and Stephanie and Catherine, to come in and kind of address us in person, so we can ask questions about what they would cover and how do they address the things on that survey, and then we decide how we move forward. And maybe based on the survey, we don't need to do something right away. I guess I can't decide tonight. I'd like to see the survey, and then I'd like to see what those presenters have to offer.
I agree with Matt. I think that all the names and ideas that we're putting out for development are a very wide range, and I think that after a survey, if we can kind of pinpoint if there are specific areas, I think that could allow us as far as next steps and what would maybe fit us the best. And it was kind of, it was highly recommended by WASB to start there. So I think that's a really good start. And even with really presenters in general, You know, even in Lee's book, it was like to start with not the WASB evaluation, but a self-evaluation, you know, an evaluation tool of some sort to see where to go forward, so I think that's a good starting point.
Okay, so if I'm hearing right, we take the survey, we get some results, and then maybe at that point, once we have those results, we look at bringing X back, we look at it then and see if we want to bring or if we want to, how we want to move forward. Is that what I'm hearing? Ian, you good with that?
Yep.
Or any other
And the
thoughts?
motion was, we're gonna take it, it's gonna go to school perceptions.
Yeah.
And then those results will give to whoever's going to come.
Any thoughts, Steve, on that as an approach moving forward?
Yeah, ready, we're ready.
Good?
Yep, ready to go.
Okay. All right, then we'll probably leave it off to our next one, and we'll just, I'll get that link sent out to everybody. We'll have some homework just out of this, obviously do that, and we'll talk about Shannon's evaluation after this as well. But that's something I'll probably just send a date, hey, can we have it done by X, 2 weeks, I think should be good for everybody, I would hope. And then we'll see when they can get us results back. And as soon as I hear, I'll ask if they can come in and present. I'm guessing we want them to come and present at a board meeting. We can discuss at some point. Okay, thanks everybody. I do appreciate you reaching out and giving some options. I think it's good for us to even think about for the next little bit. Next item, consent agenda. Anybody want to make a motion to approve items on the personnel update?
I make a motion to approve personnel update 1 personnel update and 2 athletics activities personnel update.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ian, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. General information, next meeting is June 17th, it'll be regular session with a listening session 30 minutes prior. District celebrations, Steve, we'll start with you. You have anything?
Oh, just good to see a successful, safe year in all of our schools.
Ian?
Well, there's 3 of them leaving, but I happen to know Corey Kravnick, leaving, very sad. Pretty sad.
Just thank you to all of our staff for all their work that they've done this school year. And the Somerset Memorial Scholarship Fund is raffling off a 10-by-10 garden shed built by Whitstock Builders. And all the proceeds will go to the scholarship fund. They were only selling 300 tickets. So you have a 1 out of 300 chance, or 2 if you buy 2 tickets. And it will be on display up at the fire department during Pea Soup Days at the pancake breakfasts. $20 each. That's it, I guess. But you can see me for tickets. Anybody who'd like to buy one.
Awesome. Thanks, Lori.
Yes.
Lacey?
Yeah, I will echo great school year and enjoy summer staff. Congratulations to the retirees that you had mentioned, Shannon, and the teachers with years of service. I'm thankful that the district's able to take that time on Monday morning to recognize them, because that's not always done and recognized. And I'm gonna actually, what you said as well, Ian, Corey Krebeck has played a really big role in my students' education as well, and back in 3rd grade really, so that was it's a hard one to see. We have a lost story to start there.
Yeah, same, I mean, great year. Thanks everybody, we had a great year. Congratulations to everybody retiring and moving on. Thank you. Amy?
Everybody mentioned what I was gonna say, but we'll really miss Mr. Krajak a lot, so I'm sad, really sad to see that information.
Matt, anything?
Just thank you to all the staff. Shannon, please send my thank you to all of them. Successful year, and we're on to another one. Have a great summer, everybody.
All right. Anyone make a motion to adjourn into closed session of the board pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, and performance evaluation of a public employee for which the board has jurisdiction.
So move.
Second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
Any second? We'll do a roll call vote. Steve, start with you. Ian?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Lacey?
Yes.
Bruce, yes.
Yes.
Matt, are you sticking around?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, all right, we'll move into closed session. Go to the bathroom quick, take like 3 minutes.